So we come today to talk to you about reproductive justice. I'm sure you all know that on June 24th of this year, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled in a case known as Dobbs versus Jackson that the United States Constitution does not confer a right to abortion. In this ruling, they overturned Roe versus Wade and Planned Parenthood of Southeastern Pennsylvania versus Casey. The authority of the federal government to ensure the right to abortion as a form of health care was returned to individual states to determine. In the aftermath of this decision, a number of members of this congregation, more than just the three of us, a number of us, took a 3-part webinar offered by Side with Love. Side with Love is a public advocacy campaign that seeks to harness the power of love to stop oppression. This organization is sponsored by the Unitarian Universalist Church, and these webinars were offered as reproductive justice is one of their main focuses. This particular cause is rooted in our Universalist Unitarian affirmation of the inherent worth and dignity of all people, including all bodies and all identities. This particular campaign organizes for LGBTQIA+, gender, and reproductive justice, with a focus on growing our skills, deepening our spiritual grounding, honing our analysis, and fighting together for a world in which every body, every space body, is sacred. Kathy Abernathy, Emily Lachniet, and myself were among the members who attended this training, and today we want to bring to you some of what we learned. We'll talk today about some information, and we'll also be giving you a survey to engage how involved we as a congregation might be moving forward and how you might want to be involved as an individual. My job this morning is to talk to you about the concept of reproductive justice. I must admit that this word, this concept, was new to me when I took these workshops. And I have come to personally believe that this framework is absolutely key to our continued fight for justice and bodily autonomy. Reproductive justice as a concept was coined in 1994 by Sister Song, a group of Black women who came together because they felt left out by movements such as pro-choice and reproductive rights. They felt that those movements did not fully encapsulate the experiences of everyone that sought reproductive health care, and that those movements can be artificially focused on the needs of white, middle, and upper-class women. Reproductive justice as a concept instead focuses on access to reproductive health care as its key tenet. For example, let's take life here in Virginia, where access to legal abortion mostly still exists. While I am deeply personally enraged by the recent Supreme Court decision, and I experience fear for myself and for my daughters, my relative privilege means that I have the ability to take time off of work, I have health insurance, I have a credit card, etc. And with those means, I could access the reproductive health care that myself or my daughters might need. Even if I lived 50 miles that way, even less, in Tennessee, where abortion is now completely illegal at 6 weeks, that relative privilege still exists. If I lived in Tennessee, I could use my time off from work, I could use my health insurance, and I could use my credit card to get myself or my daughters to a place where they could access the health care they required. Now imagine I'm that same woman. I live in Virginia, where reproductive health care is in fact still guaranteed. And I still have 2 kids. But now instead of being a college professor, I work at multiple minimum wage earning jobs. Even though abortion is legal, can I access it? Can I take time off of work without fear for being fired? Can I secure the child care I need to get the care that we need? Do I have health insurance? Do I have a credit card? And even more so, to extend it even further, do my children and I have access in those cases to quality healthcare education? Can I afford contraception? Is it safe for me to tell my partner that I need to seek reproductive health care? Understanding then the intersectional challenges of such identities such as racial identity and marginalized gender identities, I'm saying, and reproductive justice points out that there is a disparate number of people of color, trans and non-binary people who cannot access reproductive health care for reasons which transcend the legality of abortion itself. For this reason, working on only the right to abortion, i.e. proclaiming myself pro-choice, only addresses a fragment of a much larger issue. While a legal right to abortion care is certainly a really important part of access, it's not all of it. Returning now to Sister Song and using their words to explain reproductive justice. Here's their definition. And this is when I wish I was in a classroom where I could show it to you with words so that those of you who struggle to learn just by hearing it might have a visual aid. And I can show you where to find this online if you'd like to read it for yourself. But here's the definition that Sister Song offers for reproductive justice. Reproductive justice is a human right to maintain personal bodily autonomy, to have children or to not have children, and to parent the children we have, and to express our gender and sexuality freely in safe and sustainable communities. I'm gonna do that again, if that's all right. Yeah, let's do it again. So, reproductive justice is the human right to maintain personal bodily autonomy, to have children or to not have children, and to parent the children we have, and to express our gender and sexuality freely in safe and sustainable communities. The basic tenets of reproductive justice come down to three basic things. The first tenet of reproductive justice is that reproductive justice is a basic human right. The second tenet is that reproductive justice is about access. It's not only about choice. And the third, reproductive justice is not just about abortion. Reproductive justice is also about contraception. It's also about comprehensive sex education. It's about sexually transmitted infection prevention and treatment. It's about alternative birth options. It's about gender-affirming care. It's about safe homes. It's about our communities, and so much more. Before I pass this on to Emily, I also want to at least briefly touch on the ways in which our reproductive justice training stressed that this is not just a woman's issue. While the movement was founded by Black women who identify as Black women, this movement, after being challenged by members of the LGBTQIA+ community, evolved. They evolved in their language, much as many parts of our society have also evolved. The basic tenets of reproductive justice have expanded in their language, and the movement itself has broadened and has moved away from specific terminology that has to do with reproductive health care as a women's issue. The reasoning for this is because we know that biological sex is not nearly as simple as people have traditionally conceived. Not all people who have uteruses and receive abortion care are women. And not all women have uteruses. And those folks also need to receive reproductive health care. And perhaps most importantly, at least in my opinion, patriarchy and misogyny are at the foundation of a number of different laws coming at us right now. And the reproductive justice movement seeks to get out in front of that with inclusion as a fundamental value. And I share this value. Okay, here's reproductive justice. Emily.
So Kelly did a really nice job of describing what reproductive justice is, I think, and how it might be different than just fighting for abortion rights, access to abortion for all, that it goes beyond that. I just want to say first that I found the trainings, it was just so wonderful to be a part of those Zoom sessions. It's a lonely, hard time, I think, for people who care about these issues. There's just been so much that it feels very difficult to address, and I've felt like, what can I possibly do to change what's happening in the world? And so I've just come to appreciate more and more this church and our faith, the UU tradition. So if you all indulge me in just looking back at the principles, and I was trying to find a place where it's printed, so if you could just take out your hymnal. I just wanted to talk about, briefly for us to discuss why this matters so much to UUs. I think people often have the false belief about UUs that we pretty much can come here and believe anything. And I guess that's possible, but for people who stick around a long time, you really end up feeling in alignment with our principles, and if you don't, probably will look elsewhere for your spiritual needs. So you go past the preface, and a page after the title page. They're not numbered, but after singing the living tradition, so everyone see this list? Here it starts out, we, the member congregations of the UUA, covenant to affirm and promote. I'm just going to read them. The inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, respect for the independent web of all existence of which we are a part. And I'm going to talk in a few minutes about the UU tradition, what we have had going back and our involvement in the area of reproductive justice. But if you had to look at these principles, which ones would you say really stand out as a call to be involved in this issue? And if you just want to shout one out, I'll repeat it so that everyone can hear.
Inherent worth and dignity.
Yes, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And that, I think, speaks to what Kelly was talking about, that often our regulations, we don't see the impact of regulations and laws on everyone, that those who are privileged aren't the ones who are often affected. Any other ones?
Well, what you just said pulls in the second one.
Yes, so justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Very much so. Any others? I think the final one could be the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And that one feels just really big and really hard to address, but I say, we need to have that in front of us and to work for it. So just briefly go back to that second one, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. So I think some of these are principles that we can live just as individuals, that we can address on our own terms in the way we interact with those around us. Some of these I don't think we can address alone, that we have to work collectively, that we have to collaborate with others. And so being a part of a church or faith community that holds these values in common is one way we can work for change. So to work towards justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Equity, the second one, it goes beyond equality or the ability to that everyone would have the same rights. Equity is what Kelly was talking about, but the ability to access healthcare, the ability to have safe communities for our children, to have safe drinking water. So this is something that we can't really address on our own, but as we work together, we can do that. So I'm just going to talk, and I know there's some, how many of you consider yourselves long-time UUers? So we have a few, and you all might have been involved in some of these actions in the past, but I'm just going to go briefly over what the UU has been involved in. The UUs have a proud history of being organizing to establish and defend reproductive rights. They were probably the first faith community that stood up to support the right to choose abortion in 1963. Prior to that, the UUs were active in the clergy consultation service, which I think was not just UUs, but other faith denominations, that they actually counseled women in need of abortions and connected them with those services. In Texas, the Dallas UU congregation helped in, well, they're still today helping to advance reproductive rights, and they were party to an amicus brief to the SCOTUS in Roe versus Wade. And I just found a really interesting article from The Guardian on how they continue to this day where I think now they're actually flying women in need of abortions to New Mexico, right there from their church. So women come to the church and they transport them to the airport. Rights on paper mean little without access. So in 2010, the Affordable Care Act was a vital advancement in reproductive justice, and UUs were involved there. They were instrumental in passing and defending the ACA and defending it from attacks by corporate and ideological opponents. And UU action included ongoing civil disobedience as Congress waived repeal of the ACA in 2017. So the ACA greatly expanded access to contraception, requiring health insurers to cover contraceptive counseling and services without out-of-pocket cost to patients, among other provisions. This was crucial for low-income families to be able to have access to that needed care. This idea of reproductive justice is not new to the UUA. In 2015, this was an issue that the UUA brought to congregations as something to explore. And in 2015, issued a statement of, in 2016, a statement of conscience in support of reproductive justice actions. So the training we attended was really helpful in considering all the different actions we might take and how to consider as a congregation what would be appropriate. And Kathy is going to talk further on that end.
Thank you, Emily. And again, wonderful job Thank you, Emily. Wonderful job reviewing what the UU has done. And also, Kelly, I can see why you're a fantastic professor. Lower the mic a little bit. There we go. Now you can see me. So, this is where the rubber hits the road. What do we, as a congregation, think that we should be doing? What do we as individuals think we should be doing? We have developed a list of 2 surveys And I'm gonna pass them out and give people a few minutes to review the surveys. One is, what do you think as a congregation the UUCH should be doing? We absolutely want to have these back. We will summarize them, distribute them to the board and to the congregation, give you feedback. And because we know we don't think of everything, there's space on the bottom for if there's some other step you would like to see us take as a congregation, then include that on there if you have any questions. But all those great ideas won't matter if we don't get some people involved and willing to be doing some of the stuff. Sorry. So we also have a survey saying, what are you willing to do? What are you able to do? What are you willing to do? We need a tray here to hold the clippy things. And this has, I think, has space for your name if you're willing to sign and turn in with your name saying, this is what I'm willing to do. We will summarize that and keep that as a resource list and get it back to you so you'll know what you agreed to do. The survey, as a congregation, we're saying check as many as you want, but I would personally say, if you can, limit it to 5. Let's make something doable, or as close to 5 as you can get. So I'm going to pass these around. I have some extra pens. Anybody needs them? Yes. And since we just got back from Myrtle Beach, I'm definitely wearing my mask when I'm not talking. So everybody should have 2 sheets, one for the congregation, one for the individual that has a space for your name. Okay. And actually, we do have some extra copies of the individual. If anybody knows of anybody who's not here today, that they think might fill it out? Yeah. And of the congregation one.
Kathy, we need congregation. I can get these to this side.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Great. I got you.
Okay.
I didn't have the personal.
Huh?
I didn't have the personal.
This one. Let me just review this while you're all talking. I'll be background sound here. There are two sources of abortion funding within our immediate area. One is the New River Abortion Access Fund. It's based in Blacksburg, helps residents of Southwest Virginia, but also Virginia in general, Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia. And as you may remember, I recently moved from West Virginia and they passed a near total ban. The other is the Mountain Access Brigade, based in Knoxville. They support the Women's Health Care Center, Bristol Regional Center, which has just moved into Bristol, Virginia. But they also help women in Southeast Tennessee and they said they're working with women from many other states right now.
Does everyone have both? Yes, great.
I don't know. There's an individual.
Thank you. I also borrow a pen.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do you have extra pens?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it looks to me that most people are finished, and so I'm going to keep going. One thing I wanted to mention, I think I agree with Kelly and Emily that the training was very wonderful, and it was especially wonderful for me to see so many UUs from all across the country who were participating in this. One of the comments they made that I think struck me the most, because I am by nature a somewhat fearful and anxious person, was that they had found that the congregations that actually had the least to lose were the ones that were most fearful of taking risk. And I look around at us. We are in a relatively safe area of the country. We tend to be in this group white and middle class. We have insurance. We have a credit card. Keep that in mind as we work on some of this. I want to close with, and I don't know if I'm stealing your thunder for closing words, but we did want to close with a poem that was read as part of this training that really we all loved. It was written by Reverend Teresa Soto. Everything is still on fire. Everything is still on fire. Despite your best efforts, in addition to living, it is clear that, fire or not, you must level up in what it means to thrive. Right now, that means wrestling with the truth in the fact that everything is not all your fault. I am sorry that everything is still on fire. Once hate catches, the winds of "not my problem" blow, and the blaze is hard to stop. But hard is not impossible. Not yet is different than never. You and community have an answer. You have a response to systems of power and control and to the cost of suffering. You and your community together are the answer. You are not only a people of flame, but also a people of cold, clear truth. You know both where you fall short and where you flourish, and you still reach. Everything is still on fire, but all is not lost. You remain. More nimble than steadfast, more unshakable than swayed by the latest rage. You are here to put out the ravenous flames and heal the world. Enough is enough.